Welcome to Freedom to Learn, the podcast that champions choice in education, defends parental rights, and exposes the harm caused by school unions. I'm Jenny Gentles, Director of Education Freedom and Parental Rights at DFI, the Defense of Freedom Institute in Washington, D.C. Over 27,000 National School Choice Week celebrations will take place between January 26th and February 1st this year. With School Choice Week just around the corner, we brought on a special guest to walk us through how families, schools, and policymakers can come together to celebrate and champion education freedom. The National School Choice Awareness Foundation's Vice President of Public Awareness, Shelby Doyle, joins us to discuss the mission behind National School Choice Week. She also shares her personal experience with homeschooling and describes how parents and educators are driving the push for more educational options across the country. Shelby, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to Freedom to Learn.
It's great to be here.
You were homeschooled. Tell us about your homeschooling experience. How did your family navigate education options?
Yeah, I always tell people I grew up without knowing that school choice wasn't the default. So I was homeschooled K-12. I did hybrid homeschooling. My mom started a co-op that still exists here in Nashville, Tennessee, with hundreds of students. It's a university model, 2 days a week in person, 3 days at home. I loved that. I thrived. But I also have two siblings, and neither of them were K-12 hybrid homeschooled. They both ended up doing totally different things by the time they graduated high school. So when I think about school choice, it's a no-brainer for me. We needed different things, and we all ended up in totally different types of schools over the years.
How did your family figure out what the options were?
So I think my parents had a perspective that, if we're honest, is a lot of how people get into school choice, which is they knew what they didn't want. And that led them to search for what else they could do. And so they both had gone to enormous public high schools. They did not have a great experience there, and they wanted something different. They considered private, and that was out of reach for our family. And so homeschooling became what we did. And that's such a common homeschooling backstory. Thankfully, it's less common than it used to be because there's so many ways to afford private school as well as homeschooling now. But my parents really were just trying to solve a problem. And so that meant talking to people. It meant looking at what other people we knew were doing. And in our case, being really creative. We didn't know a lot of other homeschoolers, but my mom was a trailblazer, and she was ready to take it on.
So did your experience as a homeschooled child differ from the way homeschooling is portrayed by opponents?
Oh, yeah. I've gotten all sorts of questions, informed and uninformed, over the years about what it meant for me to be homeschooled. So I attended classes for a full school day, 2 days a week, with anywhere between 10 and 25 of my on-grade peers for my entire homeschooling experience, which is not what people think of a lot of the time when they think about homeschooling. It has some of the positives that people think about. I was able to skip a grade and be self-paced and move ahead in things I was interested in. But I also was able to develop really great relationships with students at my school. So I found it to be the best of both worlds. People definitely worry about socialization with homeschoolers, but they have less to worry about than ever, because it's still the case that some people are homeschooling truly on their own at home. But a lot of homeschoolers are involved in a micro school, involved in at least a sports league, involved in something like what I experienced, which is that in-person class element. So homeschooling looks a little different than it did a few decades ago.
All right, so let's jump to what you're doing now. Tell us about the mission of National School Choice Week and a newer organization, the National School Choice Awareness Foundation.
Yeah, so I work for the National School Choice Awareness Foundation. We facilitate National School Choice Week, which has been around for 15 years. So National School Choice Week was started to help parents actually know what their K-12 education options were and begin the process of choosing them at the right time of year. It started because we knew that we were continuing to see education options expand, though not at the rate they have in the last few years, and that there was a real knowledge gap for parents. They were interested in doing something different, but there's a lot of new terms. Public charter schools came into existence right around when I was born, about 30 years ago. And then, of course, the first modern private school choice programs around the same time. So there's a lot for parents to understand when it came to their options. So we designed the week to make it a fun and celebratory time where parents got a lot of information, but also hopefully had fun with their kids. What a concept, while choosing a school. And so that's what's been going on for 15 years. The foundation was incorporated a couple of years ago as a freestanding project to make sure that we could make the week the best and also have our year-round resources we put together for parents. So when we're not throwing parties in January alongside schools and organizations. We're also researching and putting together resources for parents to understand what their options are.
So, school choice, that's a term that's been around longer than the 15 years of National School Choice Week. We hear education freedom more often these days. Sometimes people say parental choice. How do you all define that term, school choice? What do you mean?
Yeah, so we define school choice as the process of choosing the school you want your child to go to, no matter what type of school that winds up being. So that could include a traditional public school, public charter school, private online home, or non-traditional option. What makes it school choice is that you, the parent, have chosen it and have felt empowered to do so. That's a little different than what some folks will hear, but for us, that's crucial because when a lot of parents are approaching this topic, they're thinking about it as a, how am I going to solve this problem? Not a, I want to fit into this box when I do this with my kid. And so that's our perspective on school choice.
And you're talking about a wide array of options, not just public versus private, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Private school choice is a huge part of school choice, but it's not the only part of school choice. And we survey parents every year who tell us that a plurality of them are considering public schools alongside private schools when they're making a choice for their kids.
Defense of Freedom Institute, where I work, DFI, focuses on informing the DC policymaking community. You will have phenomenal resources that enable people to search and find out what's happening at the state level with education options. So can you walk us through how, for example, a staff member for a legislator from North Carolina, how can that staff member find out what school choice options are available in that state?
Sure. So this is the bread and butter of what we do year round, the other 51 weeks of the year that are National School Choice Week. We have what we call state roadmaps, which are at myschoolchoice.com. There's a state by state breakdown to all these education options I just mentioned. So open enrollment policies for your state's local public schools, charter, magnet, private, online, and homeschooling laws. And then we also have tools like a school search tool we built in-house that helps parents actually search for schools that meet the criteria near them. But that's where I would recommend going if you want to get a broad overview of what school choice policies look like in your state, especially in a way that can be immediately communicated to the average parent. We also have what we call a snapshot, which is a PDF that has things written in a more technical way with like very clear, like, yes, you have this option. Here's how it functions in your state as a one pager. That would be great for briefing or for sharing with somebody who needs to communicate about it at a high level.
Okay, let's get to the fun part. National School Choice Week is coming up. So tell us when it's coming and give us a sense of how the DC policymaking community can get involved.
So National School Choice Week is January 26th through February 1st of this year. Every year is at the end of January. And we would love for leaders at the federal and state level to be part of sharing this information with their constituents. We know that the platform and the reach that our leaders have about this issue is hugely helpful for their constituents to know what their options are and think about school choice. So what we would love to invite elected officials to do is visit schools in their area. So there are 27,000 schools celebrating National School Choice Week this year, which we're super proud of. And that means that there's probably a school celebrating near where your boss will be during that week. And so if you have the capacity and the availability, it's a great opportunity to be near constituents, to talk to school leaders in your area and people who are actually doing the work of educating, and show how important this is to you and to your area during National School Choice Week. So we would love to help facilitate that. We can connect you with celebrating schools. If you want to do something a little bit larger scale, we do have really big events that happen at state capitals or school fairs that thousands of people will come to. We have all of that also available. We'd love to invite elected officials to attend, and that's at schoolchoiceweek.com.
There will be a big Capitol Hill event on January 29th, so smack in the middle of that week, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which is a federally funded and supported scholarship program. That 20th anniversary technically was last year, and we're going to celebrate it this year, and it's going to be awesome. Are you aware of any other events that are happening in DC that week?
There's a couple of great schools that are celebrating that we know for sure will happen during the week. There's also some conversations we're having with folks about putting things together on the Hill during School Choice Week, but I imagine that will firm up after this conversation today. We'll see what happens, but we've had a lot of really wonderful, huge celebrations in the past that have really centered on students, which we love. and made it fun and made it celebratory. But we're interested to see what's going to shape up this year. Of course, everybody's plans and calendars are a little crazy this January in particular, but we're hopeful we'll see something happen on the Hill.
I toured a charter school years ago during National School Choice Week in DC, and the students were performing. You'd mentioned student showcases, and it was such a treat. It wasn't just like this lovely, cheerful event with yellow scarves. It was a joyful event with really talented students doing what they love with various performances. So highly recommend visiting a school, checking out student showcases, and just being part of the joy of the week. The good news is the House, I believe, is out of session during National School Choice Week. Members of Congress will be back home in their districts. And you've talked a little bit about touring schools. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process of finding out about local events and how they can set up school tours? And I'll give an example. There was a congressman from South Carolina that for years, his district office would set up a National School Choice Week tour where he'd go to a traditional district public school, to a charter school, to a private school, and then he would meet with homeschoolers at like a Starbucks or something like that.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? Is to be able to see and appreciate all the different ways those constituents are choosing to educate their kids and celebrate them all during School Choice Week. So our team would love to facilitate something like that for you if you need any assistance. And we know all 27,000 of these folks who are planning events, and so we can get you in touch with the right folks. If you want to get an idea of where things might be happening that are on the larger side, if you go to schoolchoiceweek.com under state page, you'll see a list of not just big events, but kind of the top school events happening in your state. That could be a great place to start if you want to have a firm idea. But if you also email our team, you can find our emails on our website. It's Shelby@schoolchoiceweek.com if you want to be in touch with me. We can get you in touch with folks who may not be planning a huge open to the public event, but would be very happy to invite a congressman to their school, talk to their students. And like you said, it's not a stuffy event. One of our trademarks is having a new dance every year that every student learns. And so usually we'll be greeted by kids doing a celebratory, like kind of flash mob style dance when you walk in those school doors. It makes it for a really, really fun visit.
Yellow scarves, signs, all the stuff that comes along with National School Choice Week. Is it too late to order those?
It is not too late to order those. It's never too late to celebrate School Choice Week. So if you even just want to do something on social media, you'd like something to include in that picture, yellow fleece scarf, that's the symbol of School Choice Week, or a sign or something like that. We have some in DC. We'd be more than happy to connect with you and get those in your hands so that you can talk about School Choice Week, even online. We have lots of tools for that, also at schoolchoiceweek.com. If you need some background information or some suggested posts, that's all available for you. And we can get you some visuals that'll bring it to life a little bit for your post.
Speaking of visuals, social media has always been a big part of the National School Choice Week, and that's like pictures of these school visits, signs that people will fill out saying why they support school choice, and then videos that members of Congress in the past have recorded making statements about their support for school choice. I don't think hashtags are a thing anymore. But do you have any tips on social media or suggestions beyond what I mentioned?
Yeah, well, you're correct. Elon has said hashtags are no longer necessary on X, but we get to do what we want on social media. Isn't that the joy of it? So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to post on social media about School Choice Week, I think personalizing it to what your state has to brag about is always a great idea. That is the beauty of the pain sometimes of education policies. It's very different state to state. But there are a lot of states, 24 of them to be particular, who have expanded school choice in the last 2 years in some form of choice, whether that's private, open enrollment, charter funding, whatever it may be. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about where your state is doing well. If you happen to be representing one of those 24 states, you can find that list at myschoolchoice.com, where I'd be happy to help connect you with that information if you need help. And also, it's a nice kind of friendly competition, I think, between neighboring states to say, hey, you guys may have this going on, but we passed this law, students can do this in our state. I think it's a nice opportunity to kind of compare and contrast what different states are doing for their students and kind of raise the bar for everybody but in doing so.
As you mentioned, school choice has been growing significantly in recent years. It's definitely grown significantly since the early days of National School Choice Week, which started 15 years ago. What role would you say that parents have played in driving that growth?
I think it's hard to overstate. Parents have been at the forefront of this modern school choice movement since the first charter school started, since the first private school choice program of the modern era started in that early 90s phase. It was very much a parent-driven movement. It continues to be. I am really excited to see how much more common advocacy for greater school choice has become in all sorts of demographics of parents. For a long time, it's been hard to persuade parents who happen to be able to live near a great school district and maybe are having a good experience in that school that other people and the options that they want are having a very different experience out there. And I think in the last 5 years, that's become a far clearer narrative that whether or not you live near a great school, options are important. So I think parents have a huge credit to be given in what has expanded about school choice. Of course, really states are leading on this issue. States across the country, everywhere from like Montana to Florida, are really saying, we want to do something different about this. It really hasn't come from the federal level, which I think is cool.
A lot of times with these discussions about school choice, there's this idea that you're hurting teachers if you support school choice. But from my observations, educators get really excited about National School Choice Week, and all kinds of educators, including district traditional public school educators. So can you talk a little bit about the role of educators in celebrating options for kids?
Yeah, I love that about National School Choice Week is that teachers and educators are really at the center of these 27,000 celebrations. We work with these schools, and when we say these schools, we mean teachers or leaders at these schools to register their schools to celebrate the week and to use this opportunity to talk about what they're doing well and why they love their job. And so we try to keep it incredibly positive, and we try to keep teachers and educators at the center of this narrative because any type of school has something to celebrate. During School Choice Week, we work with school districts, huge school districts across the country. Huge public school districts will register all of their schools to celebrate and talk about what makes them great to families. And I think that is one of the big legacies of School Choice Week and of the school choice movement is encouraging every single school in this country to make their case to the families near them that they would be a good fit for their kid. And that helps parents.
Final thoughts from the National School Choice Awareness Foundation perspective. We've been talking about the logistics of getting involved in National School Choice Week, which again is starting at the end of January. How can elected officials stay involved in the school choice issue year round?
The number one way I would say is to raise awareness, use the platform you have to keep the focus on this issue. School choice is certainly growing across the country, but it's nowhere near as plentiful as it should be. And so as people with a platform, people in a leadership position, continuing to keep the interest in this issue and talk about the things you're hearing from families, I think is the most helpful thing you can do. If we really trust parents, which we do here at the National School Choice Awareness Foundation, we should be listening to them and responding to them in the options we give their family.
Shelby, thank you so much for all the amazing, remarkable logistical support that you and the National School Choice Week team undergoes each year. And thank you for your commitment to education freedom and empowering parents and for joining Freedom to Learn.
Thanks for having me, and same to you for all of the above. I enjoy doing this work with you, and thanks for having me.
Freedom to Learn is a production of the Defense of Freedom Institute. You can learn more about DFI at dfipolicy.org. If you have feedback or suggestions for future podcasts, please reach out to us at podcast@dfipolicy.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.